Hello, everybody. Dave Neal here, stand-up comic and host of Bachelor Nation News. Last night was the third week of The Bachelorette, and after our recap video we released this morning, we received a lot of comments as to the pitting against each other that may be happening between the leads, Gabby and Rachel. None of their doing, but is the show heightening the drama by giving the men sort of the platform to tell the women why they're not choosing them and what dynamics might exist there that are different from all the other previous seasons of The Bachelorette. So do me a favor, follow me on Instagram at DNeals, and I've also got a new private bonus episode on the Patreon, patreon.com/Dave Neal, and I just uploaded my Friday night stand-up comedy set. If you want to check the full set out, that's on patreon.com/Dave Neal. Well, whenever we have some questions with regards to the different dynamics that exist within the Bachelor world, we always love to talk with our resident relationship expert. So let's go over here to my interview with Dr. Diane Strachowski. It's that time of the year. We're starting to get a lot of armchair experts in the audience discussing the Bachelorettes. Are they ready for love? How they're acting? What's your overall vibe with watching this new season play out with two Bachelorettes?
Well, Dave, I have to admit I had mixed feelings. On the one part, I'm very excited. I love that the show is mixing it up. We're seeing something new. I can't wait to get on the ship. I think that's going to be new and novel. And at the same time, as a woman and as a therapist, I feel like the women are put in a very awkward situation, one like we've never seen before. And I really wanted to talk about that to sort of hold space for the women who are having strong reactions to this, two women against each other.
Yeah, and obviously the show said we're not going to be pitting them against each other, but it's kind of like how could you not? I mean, it's this is how it works. And on one end, you've got I think people traditionally aren't going to choose a partner if they don't have to. If you live in New York City, no one settles down in New York City. This is like this is like Lower Manhattan, having all these guys, a couple ladies. So it looks like we have Gabby and Rachel going, all right, we're going to do this together. And then by episode 3, they're like, all right, pick and choose. We got to separate you guys. What are your thoughts with how they flipped up the structure there to kind of make the men choose?
Well, I have lots of thoughts about this, Dave. Even limo entrance number 1, when I didn't feel like it was the envelope that was kind of set up with Jesse introducing, like, how is this going to work? He kept saying to the women, so how's this going to work? And it's like, you're the producers. So my feeling was we're sort of dropping this to the women to handle. But I will tell you this, if any two women can handle this, I'm so impressed with these two women and their friendship. And I think that's really the story, how well these two women are talking and handling most all and every situation together.
Yeah, and I like that they have a little bit of an age difference and personality difference where it's like I would think either you're a Rachel or you're a Gabby. You can find reasons to love either one, but one of them would probably take root. But also, we have to remember, these guys are only hours into knowing them. So I guess like we mentioned before we talked, there could be this idea of like, does he really love me, or is he making the wrong choice? So talk to me a little bit about that fear that might exist of wondering with other options, is this the right choice by choosing Rachel or by choosing Gabby?
Well, I think what's unique about this season, and yes, we're saying we're not pitting them against each other, but I do think when it comes to love, and this is my expertise, you do have a gut feeling, right, about one person. And I think you're instinctively going to be moved towards one or the other. And I think if you don't, then chances are neither is right for you, right? It's the same thing in dating. If you're swiping and you don't have a strong reaction about one or the other, is it because you don't know them enough, or it's just not compelling enough? But I think what's playing out is the men, and I want to talk about some men who I think are doing a better job than others, declaring who is their choice, that if you don't, again, you're going to be forced into this. And I think Gabby and Rachel knew that this was going to happen, so I don't think it's a surprise. They said right from the beginning, some guys we're going to be interested in some similar guys, but they've been trying so hard by saying things, even on the limo entrance. I don't know if you noticed, like they would each say, he's my type. And they were sort of marking their guys. Like Spencer, Gabby said, he's my type. Rachel said, Tino, he's my type. So I think they've been trying to do a really nice job to sort of inform the other one who they're interested in.
Yeah, well, would any of that say Tino walks out and Gabby's like, "Oh my gosh," do you will any of that competition flare up where the other person then becomes interested in someone they can't have because they see that there's high equity or stock put into them by their friend?
Dave, I think men might be more likely to think that way. I think women, the woman code is I've got dibs on him, don't you dare come near. So I don't see that as much.
Okay.
No.
You know, and it's interesting. We've looked at a lot about how we've gotten the chance to see them fresh off of Clayton season, where I saw Rachel and Gabby this way. I saw Rachel angry at Clayton and Gabby more like compassionate and sad. And I don't know which one's necessarily right, but I see a similar trend happening. Just, you know, your average power recapper here, no real therapy background at all. But I see that with Rachel when she gets rejected in the rose ceremony, she's angry. She's like, we were supposed to take back control of this. Whereas when Gabby gets rejected, I don't see that same sort of feelings. Are those just personality differences?
You know, this is a great question. And Dave, on my page and what I talk about is attachment styles. And I do think that there's two things going on here. There's who Rachel and Gabby are in terms of their attachment styles with their families and their general way of being in relationship. And then I think there's context too. And I want to go to context first, because I think what we've seen in other seasons and why this one's different is usually the lead has power, right? They've got a room full of, 20, 30 guys until the final four, like we saw in Katie Thurston, where now guys are deciding to leave. You don't really see a flare up of anxiety until then. And so I think what's different about this season is we're seeing it early on because of this issue about, are you here for me or for her? And that's the novelty of it. And that's more contextual anxiety. But to your point, Dave, I do think that Rachel maybe has a little bit of anxious attachment style. We call that anxious angry. When I don't get what I want and I feel out of control, I might bark back a little bit. I don't know, because it seems like her family's very loving. Her parents are, her mother, right on the video last night, was very effusive. But her father seems a little bit, you remember Tino?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Is that his name?
No, I think it's Tony.
Tony, that's right.
Tony. Rachel's dad, who's a little bit hot and cold with the guys. And sometimes you can have an anxious attachment style if you have one or the other parent that's there for you, sometimes not others. Now, Gabby, on the other hand, we get to some really tough family history, right? She's estranged from her mother, but I get the feeling Gabby's really done some work on herself. And I wanted to come to your audience because I'm seeing these comments that are saying, these women aren't ready. They're very insecure. And I'm thinking, this, in my mind, is a lot of context. It's a lot of the environment that's creating the anxiety, as opposed to they're just being anxious in and of themselves. And it's the context and these two women, what I call the sister effect, that I think is the issue.
And that being the fact that they have, that because there are other options, it opens up the insecurity floodgates.
Well, I do think women are very clear with one another. I'm interested in this guy. I think that's the girl code. But two, a woman's deepest fear or her insecurity is that you're going to like my best friend better than me.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because I think they both could stand alone as the Bachelorette. I think it was just a case where they both got scorned in different types of ways by the edit and by Clayton. What was interesting to me, and we'll never have everyone's got their own story to tell, but with Clayton, he was so worried about his own journey that they had to be like, we're on a journey too. But now that they're the leads, it's almost like Rachel tells Gabby at the end of the last episode, we were supposed to take back control. This is our journey. And then you have to go, well, it's the man's journey as well. So it's like, how do you leave space for them to come up with the right decision on who to choose while you are in the same boat? So it's almost like with Bachelor in Paradise, you take away that power. When you talk about the lead's power, it's very interesting. You take that away on Bachelor in Paradise, but Bachelor in Paradise has more success in a way because it's just like a normal equal playing ground, which isn't that what you want in a relationship? Some equality, some equal playing.
And Dave, I think this is great. My husband and I were talking about this, a little bit of the hypocrisy, right? And we have to be careful. And I want to support the men in this journey too. But I think there are better ways going about the process of deciding than others,
Right.
right? And I think, is it Tyler who last night came forward and he said to
To
Gabby,
Gabby, yep.
I'm more interested in Rachel. And I thought this was a beautiful example of doing it in a very neutral way, as opposed to Hayden, which we have to talk about, who said you're rough around the edges. And that was just, in my mind, too much information.
Yeah.
A TMI that really just stirred up Gabby's insecurities. And back to this, do I really need this information? And then there are other men like Tino, like Nate, like Eric. Each of those men have made it very clear what woman they're interested in, but I don't recall, or we didn't see in the edits, them going to the other woman and telling them of their choice.
Right. Yeah, it's very interesting when they all kind of, like you said, when Tyler and Hayden and the blonde ponytail guy, whatever, Justin, when they all came out, it did to me it felt like producer pile on, like, all right, let's all, whoever's not into Gabby, let's get it out of the way now. But at the same time, Hayden, you can't make someone say anything. So for him to say rough around the edges, it's like, have you never politely let somebody down before? A lot of people commented, oh, it felt like these men were just really loving, dismissing her like that. I don't know if that's the case either, but for sure they were worried about themselves and not about her. Maybe giving her the benefit of the doubt, saying, oh, she's one of the leads, she'll be perfectly fine. And now in hindsight, we watch this and we go, oh no, this is like a very sensitive thing, what side we're picking. And as you mentioned, the format's horrible, but like, it's just the show maximizing drama as always, making them do it in front of everybody.
We always have to be aware of the fourth wall, is that what it's called?
Sure.
Right. And the production and the editing, and they're trying to make good TV. But I do think that when it comes to love, you do have a sense of one or the other. And as I said, if you don't have a strong inclination towards one or the other, chances are it's neither. And I do believe that the producers were in the back end, this whole idea you get to choose even the group date, who do you picture yourself with? And they all thought they had more time. And then we saw in the rose ceremony, when they don't get the cocktail party, they're all shocked, right? I had thought I had more time. And the producers, I feel like, kind of let the guys on too, with this idea that you have more time to choose. And we know that time is of the essence.
Yeah, absolutely. My question for you is, do you think that because the men did get a little bit of choice here, that it could lead to the end, them feeling like they didn't just win? I kind of feel like sometimes men, and maybe, well, I don't know if women feel this way as well, but on The Bachelorette, it's all about winning. Your cell phone's gone, the whole world's taken away from you, you're sequestered there, and it's like, I gotta win, and then you win, and then reality sets in, and you go, I don't even know if I like this person. So at least they have a little bit of a choice, saying, well, I was going after Rachel, and there's a little bit more of like a feeling of control to not just winning, but finding your person.
Well, but back to your point about Bachelor in Paradise, because those relationships get tested and you have choice between other people. And so we don't know what will come out of it. Maybe there'll be even stronger matches. I also follow like Love Island, and the whole point about that is I love these reality shows because we're testing something that isn't even established yet. But oftentimes the tests do make people feel stronger in their choice.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's like at least it gives you a little bit of feeling like you're part of the process. Unlike Dale Moss, who all of a sudden he's putting a ring on a finger 3 days in, and he's like, "What am I even doing here?" You know, he probably would have done better. And maybe he's a bad example, but maybe he would do better on like a Bachelor in Paradise where he can date someone and then someone like for me. I mean, I met my fiance and started dating late 20s. I had met all the wrongs, and then maybe she's met all the wrong guys too. And finally, we looked at each other and go, "All right, okay, we can tolerate each other for the rest of our lives. So good so far." And I don't know if that would have happened on a 3 week dating reality show. And some of these shows, I don't know. Have you seen All Star Shore? Have you dabbled in that chaos?
Not that
Yeah,
one,
I
no.
mean it's actually a lot of fun, but it's more of a challenge like competition show. But Blake and Giannina are dating from that, so it just goes to show. Literally, you put a bunch of good-looking 20s and 30-year-old people under a house without any sort of formula. Somebody's gonna make it work. So it's almost like the show doesn't have some secret formula. They're just putting people together.
Oh, and they're all attractive people. And I think there's something to be said, Dave, for dating people who have been through a similar experience, because what we know about all these experiences, they do take away your access to everything else. And you have to go all in. And going all in is actually a good thing in dating. So I try to look for the lessons in these shows. And that's why I follow them. People say, "You're a therapist. Why are you following silly shows?" There are lessons to be learned in this. And one of them is go all in. And if you can't go all in, and we know this for a fact on The Bachelor, if you can't declare that you're falling in love, and if you're falling behind, you're out.
Yeah.
If you can't get there, you're gone. And I think why, and why I wanted to talk to you, Dave, why women are so upset about this setup here is because this kind of mimics real life dating. Women don't feel special. I hear this from all my clients. I can attest to that. When I was dating, they don't feel special. And they don't like the sense of, again, what I call the sister thing, the competition, feeling like you might be choosing my best friend. And I'll tell you why I call it the sister issue is because when I was single and dating, I have three sisters, but one I lived with, she's beautiful, a doctor, and I had a guy I was dating come over, meet my sister, and then keep talking about how attractive my sister was. And I'm like, dude, do you realize I'm never going to see you again? Like, it's not working for me. And that's what's happening here is that I think the men got a mixed message. You get to choose and then be vulnerable, right? Come forward, tell us how you're feeling. But there are better ways to do that than not, which is to go to the person directly. Even Gabby says to Tyler, "Have you told Rachel that you're interested in her?" That's the right way to do it.
Right.
The guys I mentioned who went directly to the person, tell them you're all in. That makes them feel special. And then trust that the women are going to talk because they do. They're talking about all of this behind the scenes, and they will say, "Oh, I really like Tino. Oh, I really like Nate. He makes me feel so special." And then you don't have to hear from the other person they're not interested in you. It's just a given.
Yeah, it's almost like you're so dead on, and it's almost like Gabby. It seems like Gabby knows how she wants the show to be sort of orchestrated, and yet producers know when you're about to go full transparency, they'll all right, we gotta bring in a wardrobe. Oh, time for a lunch break. Whenever you're about to have that moment where you're gonna like lay it all out there and tell people how you feel, they don't want that. They want there to be some innuendo. They want there to be some wondering because that's how the show kind of gets made. Not to say it's the right way, but that's just how they seem to show their true colors. And I had a question a little off topic for you. What are your thoughts on the celebrity or whatever you want to call it, the influencership that comes after the show? I mean, you've got a lot of people that never had any money, and all of a sudden they've got some options in life. Like take a Nate for example. Nate and Michelle, they obviously broke up. How do you think that can weigh into finding love versus all these sort of exploits that come from having a little bit of momentary fame?
I think Caitlin Bristow said it best when she said, "I went on the show hoping to find love, but maybe looking for something else. And then we saw her journey, and now she's with Jason. And you can find love differently." But what I don't like, and I'll tell you, I'm very careful in my words, Dave, about talking about people's readiness, because even back to Nate, people will say, well, he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready for love. He didn't have a girlfriend prior to that. I don't feel like we should decide somebody's readiness.
Mm.
They get to decide it on their own. And at what point do you have no experience and then all of a sudden you can get experience? I do believe that you can find both. You can find your best friend, a partner, and if something else comes out of that, we have experiences with that. Hannah G has done a beautiful job with that. She's with Dylan, they're engaged. She's found fame as a model. I think we have plenty of people in Bachelor Nation who have been able to do both. Becca, Kufrin, she's been able to do both. These are successful women. And I think you have to know how to manage your ego, though,
Yeah.
in all of that when you do show up. And a lot of people get a production specialist, somebody who, helps them, kind of a talent manager.
Yeah, because it can open the doors to great opportunities. And with me and my fiance, I mean, I didn't know, I never dated anyone before her, so I never knew when to buy flowers or certain like chivalrous things that weren't part of the sort of hookup culture or the short-term dating culture that I was in. And so anyone could have said the same thing about me that they said about Nate. And I think when someone's the right person for you, you quickly can learn and adapt to how they want to be treated and share love and all that.
Well, I do also think that watching all the shows that I do, you don't need to sample all the goods to appreciate what you have.
Yeah.
Right? You don't have to be tested. It's not Temptation Island. But somehow people do believe in that process, going through that, like in Bachelor in Paradise, because your relationship is tested in some ways and you keep going on a date and then you're thinking more of the last person you were with and then you really decide that. I think these relationships go really fast, right? Zach last night after Rachel's date said, I'm falling. And I thought, yeah, because the whole envelope, that's what production also did really well. It was a beautiful date. It was romantic. We haven't seen one of those Hollywood dates in a long time. The effort they put into those sweet movies, I loved that. That's why I watched the show, for
That was a
these.
very good surprise that they had some fresh date there. I thought it was going to, I was cynical. You watch these, you go, all right, what's next? And yeah, they did a great job of making it sentimental with two virtual strangers and a real moment that they had there. And I mean, if he's not like, number one in charge right now with her, that's why I was so surprised that she was getting so mad at some of the other guys. I was like, do you not remember the date you just had? But obviously sometimes, you get rejected by a guy, it's, it still stings, even though there's Zach right there.
Well, I think the other thing, to your point, Dave, and to my point about context, is these two women are also feeding off each other. As opposed to in the past, you have one bachelorette, you have one host. They're mainly talking to production. Here, you have two women saying, wait a minute, this is our journey. We don't want to get played. We don't want this to be like real life dating. We've put our whole lives on hold. We've gone all in. We want big rewards.
Yeah.
Gabby herself said, I came into this with big expectations because this is their journey and they have been through some hurt. And I think other women want to protect them, want them to have a good journey. We're feeling like, oh, these men, why do they say such things? It's just not necessary.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's almost too when you've got some of these guys when they're sitting around the living room talking to each other, do they forget the cameras are rolling? And that's the environment they want. They want the cameras to be a little backed up. They're all mic'd up. They want to feel them good so that they might say things that otherwise you would never say in a situation when and be exposed in that way. Which we're gonna see. There'll be some more villains coming, and we'll have to see how it all plays out. I'd love if you want to come back in a few weeks. It'd be nice to talk about the new structure and see how it changes their personality.
Other thing, Dave, that I wanted to say, which I really like, is no BS. I really do like that the women are like, cut and let's work through these guys pretty quickly. And I feel like, in the past, like even last week with Chris, boom, he was out. And I like that we're not seeing these long sort of villain stories. I think the drama in it of itself, just that we've got two bachelorettes, that's plenty. we don't need more more storyline than that.
Yeah.
Because we've got, two one-on-ones. I mean, there's just a lot going on here. I'm sure it was an absolute nightmare, but I really have high hopes that now, once this is beyond us, I love that the women did handle that. My only thought is I didn't like Jesse kind of saying, okay, you get to give a rose. And then it was a little bit awkward at the end, like he's taking the rose away. And I was like, wait a minute. Now, in the end, even Bachelor Data said they both ended up with 9, but that was a little bit weird.
Yeah, they're just making the rules as they go. It was one of those, like, you're watching a sporting event that's a little overly coached. It was like, let them play. They got it going. They're fine.
But in the end, my advice to people in dating is it only takes one. And I think there are at least 2, if not 3, for each of them that I think are really good connections. And so I just focus on the end game. Usually here we're just getting, just eliminating people slowly, sort of over time.
Yeah, and as they always say, episode 5, 6, 7, things will start picking up, especially when they start traveling. So we'll have to see how it all plays out. But it's been relatively interesting so far. We haven't had any crazy drop the mic moments, so far this season. But with this many guys, it's only like petty villain, content so far. We have to wait for the hearts to really open up before we can see, whatever will eventually go down.
I'm loving it thus far. Honestly, I really am. I love that Gabby knows who she is, that she says, no apologies. I am who I am because of my experience. I think I have high hopes for both of them. And I do think the other guys, we're going to get rid of them pretty quickly too, because these are 2 smart women.
Yep, absolutely. Well, come back anytime. We always love chatting with you. I want to promote your Instagram, Back to Love Doc on Instagram. Dr. Diane's got a free love style quiz you can take there in her bio on Instagram. Anything else you can promote while I have you?
And check out my videos, because my husband is playing Gabby and I'm playing Rachel. I don't know if we did a promo video, and so my 6'6" husband is wearing a wig.
Oh, nice. One of these days we need to get a little Bachelor commentator soiree going so we can meet all the other better halves that are will.
We joke around. He's my best friend. We watch it together, and so it's fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much for your insight here. I always appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a comment below. Let me know what you agreed with, disagreed with, and if you don't mind, go give Dr. Diane a follow on Instagram at BackToLoveDoc, and I am at DNeals, plus the Patreon at patreon.com/DaveNeal. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.